So, Danielle talked to you at our last council meeting when the public hearing was conducted regarding judicial confirmation. This item has been discussed for the last couple of years. It has to do with the construction and development of well number 10, which is our newest well to be located near the state line at the end of A Street West. We've obtained a Department of Environmental Quality revolving loan fund to finance that project, and we are moving ahead with the development. It's been identified in our water comprehensive plan as the next development that needs to be done as far as our water supply. We have a water right to utilize that well, not as a new source, but as a redundant source. That's one of the reasons that we're moving ahead with judicial confirmation in this case as an ordinary necessary expense, because the current codes require that we have a redundancy in our system, and our system is currently deficient as far as fire flow and provision of water when our largest producing well number 9, goes down. You'll recall at one time that we had anticipated also moving ahead with the Northwest Reservoir rehabilitation or replacement at that time as well. It was determined that with the redundancy to be created by well number 10, that we could not classify replacing that reservoir at this time as an ordinary necessary expense. I'll go into that in just a moment. As we looked at other elements of our water comprehensive plan that were deficient in that they did not meet our current fire code requirements, fire flow requirements, and provision of water, we looked at any other pieces of that comprehensive plan that could be classified as being an ordinary necessary expense because the fact that we do not meet the minimum requirements of those codes. Those that were identified were some booster station projects, 6 booster stations within the city of Moscow that provide water pressure for fire flow, as well as some additional piping in Indian Hills development, and piping to well number 10, and for the booster station project, totaling approximately $4.2 million. Idaho Constitution, Article 8, Section 3, prohibits a city from incurring debt beyond its current budget year unless it is subject to a vote of the public. In this case, it's a revenue bond. It would require 1/2 plus 1 of the electorate to pass that bond, or it can be classified as an ordinary necessary expense. If it is determined to be an ordinary necessary expense, then the district court will so find, and that will authorize the city to issue its debt instruments in order to finance these improvements. Now, those debt instruments can either be a bond, could be a loan of some sort, such as the DEQ revolving loan. What it does, and the DEQ revolving loan requires, that we also show that we have the current ability to legally incur that debt. So that's why we're moving ahead at this time. As you recall, in December, we came forward to the council. Council passed a resolution at that time setting a public hearing to take place on January 6th. That public hearing, the subject of that public hearing was to take public input to determine whether or not the public had any input regarding the filing of a petition for judicial confirmation. That hearing was held at that time under the code. Council was allowed to consider that public testimony, and then to move ahead within the next 2 weeks, certainly the next meeting, to consider that testimony and determine whether it wanted to move ahead with the filing of that petition. I won't belabor the point. You've heard this time and again. The committees have heard it time and again. These are necessary improvements. We have been approved for the revolving loan fund for $2.7 million for the development of well number 10. Les has indicated that he has submitted an application for the revolving loan fund monies for the booster stations and other improvements as well. Again, that is just a way of incurring that debt. It still requires judicial confirmation or a vote in order to provide the city with authority to incur that debt. What we're here today to do is to have the council determine whether to consider the testimony that was given at the public hearing on January 6th and to determine whether or not it wishes to move ahead with judicial confirmation. If the council decides that it wishes to move ahead and requests the district court to make that determination, our attorney, Danielle Quaid, and Nicole Pantera from Hawley Troxel will, with the assistance of city staff and the city attorney, will file a petition with the district court for that determination. The process is the council, if it determines that it wishes to move ahead with the petition, and a draft petition is in your packet. This is, I believe, the third time that you've seen it. It's been honed a little every time, become more accurate as those facts are developed. If the council decides it wishes to proceed with that, there is a resolution in your packet that makes the necessary findings that the council has considered in order to move ahead with filing that petition. Also, if the council decides to decides to adopt the resolution and the petition will be attached as a exhibit to that resolution, then there is a draft ordinance in your packet as well. That ordinance is the next step after the filing of the petition to move ahead with the ordinary necessary determination. The findings, and I'll just point the council to those particular findings. They're found on page 2 of 3 of that resolution, that the mayor and council deem the ordinary necessary improvements are for the public good and welfare and will improve the health, safety, comfort, and convenience of the city, residents of the city, users of the system, that the council declares there is an immediate need to design and construct the ordinary necessary improvements that is pursuant to the deficiencies in the system that don't meet those minimum safety codes, that the petition, which is also within the packet, is approved. The mayor is authorized to execute and validate the same, and that bond counsel is authorized to file it with the district court and obtain a judgment with the district court that is in conformance with what we're asking for, and that is the authority to move ahead with issuing that debt. And that amount of that debt will not exceed $4,295,000 plus required reserves, cost of issuance to finance the city's project costs. As Don, I'm sure, will be happy to stand up here and tell you, there are attendant costs that go along with issuing municipal debt, and those amounts would also be included. Last, number 5, is merely a clause that says if any portion of the petition is determined to be invalid, that it doesn't affect the enforceability of the entire petition and the resolution. So, if the council would like to discuss the resolution and the petition, I can then talk about the ordinance if you wish.
Questions from the council for Gary? Dan?
You know, I would make a motion that we adopt this resolution to approve filing the petition for judicial confirmation, which makes the findings and declarations regarding financing cost of ordinary and necessary improvements, and that authorizes the filing of the petition for judicial confirmation.
Second. Okay, we got Dan's motion to adopt a resolution, approval filing a petition of judicial confirmation, and Tom's second. I will start with John.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that passes. And now I will read this resolution, which is 201404, a resolution of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, making findings and declarations with respect to financing the cost of certain ordinary and necessary improvements to the domestic water systems serving the residents of the city, approving and authorizing, subject to judicial confirmation, the financing of the ordinary and necessary improvements, authorizing the filing of a petition for judicial confirmation in the District Court of the 2nd Judicial District of the State of Idaho, and providing for related matters, providing this resolution to be effective upon its passage, approval, and publication according to law. And that again is Resolution 2014-04.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Gary.
Next step is to consider, and staff's recommendation is to approve the petition for judicial confirmation. That is also contained in your packet. Again, I believe this is the third time that council has seen this draft petition. It will be attached to both the resolution and the ordinance, sir, when it is filed. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the petition for judicial confirmation.
I'll second.
Okay, Wayne made the motion to approve it with Art's second, and I will start with Art.
Aye.
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 That passes. Now, do I need to read anything else, Gary? Or
Not until until the council considers the ordinance, sir. Okay, what you have before you is the ordinance that is required under Idaho Code, Title 50, Section 1035, which is known as the Idaho Revenue Bond Act. This ordinance is required when the council approves the judicial confirmation, or approves the filing of the petition. There has to be an ordinance in place evidencing the issuance of that debt. So if you go through Section 1 of that, it sets the amount of the debt, $4,295,000 plus required reserves and issuance costs, that we will attach the design, construction, and installation to this as they are developed, that it is desired that debt is incurred by the city in order to finance these improvements, that the bonds will be authorized pursuant to ordinance, and this is very important, that the bonds shall not be a debt of the city, and the city shall not be liable thereon, nor shall the bonds be payable out of any funds other than the revenues of the system. Such bonds shall not be payable from ad valorem property taxes. That's why this is a revenue bond. The folks who purchase these bonds may look to the revenues of the utility and not to the general taxes of the city. And the last two sections provide provisions for publication, as well as the officers of the city are directed to act in conformance with this ordinance.
Mr. Wayne.
Well, I'm glad you read that, Gary. Particularly Section 5, I think, is very important, because one of the questions I know that we've all probably fielded was, if this bond is passed, are you going to raise our water rates to do it? And this specifically speaks to the fact that we would not, that it does come out of revenue of the system.
We already have.
Well, other than what we already have done. There won't be an additional increase to cover this bond. Am I saying this right?
Well, I think
It's coming out of the current funds that we're bringing in.
it will. This section, Section 5, states that no taxes will be used to pay for these bonds. There may be additional increases in conformance with the rate study which was just completed. The debt that is represented by this, and further debt down the road to finance those improvements, would be the result of any increases or current water rates. It is done in conformance with both the plan and that rate study. But suffice it to say that this has been anticipated. It was anticipated in the first rate study, and it was anticipated in the rate study that was just completed this last year. So those rates are implemented, and I believe it's a 5-year rate horizon, 7-year rate horizon, that amortization of this debt has been considered in the formulating of those rates for the next 7 years.
Walter.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the ordinance evidencing the city's intent to issue the revenue bonds and provide the basis for the judicial confirmation under suspension of the rules, requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that the ordinance be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
Okay, we have Walter's motion and Tom's second to pass this ordinance, and I will start with John.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that completes it. Stephanie, is this 02, 20-01402? Okay, this is ordinance 2014-02, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, approving and authorizing certain ordinary and necessary improvements to the domestic water system serving the residents of the city, setting forth the estimated cost of the ordinary and necessary improvements, ordering the design and construction of ordinary and necessary improvements, authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds in the amount up to $4,295,000, plus required reserves and issuance costs to finance the ordinary and necessary improvements, providing for the payment of such bonds, providing for other related matters, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law.
Thank you.
Thank you.